Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Okay.
And that's, I've started already.
Oh.
In that spirit.
Okay.
You weren't ready for that. I know you weren't ready, but I've started for that. The spirit of efficiency.
And go. Is this the auctioneer episode?
This is it. Trailer. Go. Trailer. Instagram. Andy did great. Andy did terrible. Go. Can I tell you the worst? My refrigerator, which I love. You remember the saga of my refrigerator. I got a new refrigerator. It's not new anymore now. It's old. But you know what I've noticed? When you put in your cup underneath it, I noticed this tonight because I was in a hurry because I was running late to come talk to you. And when I put my SodaStream bottle under the nipple,
yes,
I shouldn't have used that word because the next word that I'm going to use is stream. So you could project how that would be a mistake. What I'm going to say is the stream is very slow. And it's annoying when you're in a hurry and you have to fill up. Are you even here?
Sounds like a conversation I used to have with my wife after our children were born.
This stream is so slow. So this was just a cavalcade of incorrect words to actually have an intelligent conversation about the stream that comes from the nipple of my refrigerator.
I don't think my refrigerator has nipples.
It doesn't have nipples. It probably has one. You get water out of it. It's got the mono nipple.
I call it a spigot.
Unipple. You know what it really is? It's the refrigerethra.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is so cinematic.
It's cinematic anatomy. That's what we're doing right now, friends.
Holy cow.
Can you beat that? Any of my stories? Can you beat it?
I have nothing.
Andy, we should tell the people where we're from.
Where are we from?
Everybody, it's the Next Reel. Thanks so much for listening in and joining us for Gross Anatomy and Appliance Repair. We appreciate you hanging out with us, listening to our movie spoilage. My name's Pete Wright. There's Andy Nelson.
Hello.
And tonight we're gonna tackle it's often referred to as the white whale of the movie critique circles. I don't know that that's true, but we are going to be talking about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining this evening. I'm very excited about this, but first, you need to get to know us a little better. So you head over to thenextreel.com and you check out our past shows, past episodes. You can check out our monthly film board episodes where we gather the gang of thugs to talk about a new release film or one of the classic films that Andy and I have talked about over the years. You can read the blog stylings of the Once and Future King, Steve Sarmento, and join us in the conversation. Head over to facebook.com/thenextreel or twitter.com/thenextreel or Google plus Next Reel something show. Well, search for us on Google Plus. We're there too, and join the conversation. And you know what's even better? When you leave us a nice comment on iTunes. iTunes is still the very best way for people to discover the show, and your comments and kind stars help to raise awareness of the stuff that we do. So if you like the show, you appreciate what we do, your comments make it better. And we need to talk about some of that, right?
Yes, that's right, we do.
We should do that.
Because we've got our Listener's Choice episode coming up in a couple months, and we're going to be doing our drawing here in, I think, when did we say? Early November?
Early November. Oh, goodness. That's coming right up.
No, that's when the episode airs. Sorry, we're doing the drawing in mid-October. So
I'm totally unprepared for this.
So people are leaving comments on, like Pete said, Facebook, iTunes, Twitter, and we already have a couple comments out there. One from Brenda Tackett, who wonders if we have done the original Bad Seed, and
that's a good one.
I've never seen it.
What?
So I know I never have seen it.
Man.
So, which piques my curiosity. So maybe we'll be talking about that one. And then over on Twitter, Tony Danger said, think you guys can do a Nightmare Before Christmas episode for either Halloween or Christmas. Well, there we've got a couple.
I like that.
A couple entries there in the Listener's Choice episode. So get out there and leave us some comments, and we'll consider something that you pull out of your hat for us to talk about.
That would be great. That is, we deeply appreciate those comments. And you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. It's motivating. When people say nice things, it sure makes me want to come and talk to you every week.
I have no other reason to talk to you.
I hate it when you burn me by the pre-joke. I set you up. I recognize I set you up with that one.
Yes, you gave that one to me.
Well, let's
You're
see
a giver. You're a giver, Pete.
Let's see if I can dig up something to make fun of you on. How did the Pony Prize go this week?
Well, you'd be making fun of our buddy Stephen Smart, who took over again this week.
Oh, then I pre-take it back.
Yeah, it was a good week for him. But he picked the movie Tamara Drew, or I don't know if it was Tamara Drew or Tamara Drew, depending on your particular pronunciation of the name. I haven't seen the film, so I don't know how they pronounced it in the film. But it was a Stephen Frears film from 2010 that apparently nobody has seen. Well, one person finally on just yesterday, day 6, Kendra Midmod 83 finally figured out what movie it was from. And so, yeah, Stephen almost had everybody outsmarted this week. But alas, Kendra Midmod 83 came through and now is entered to win the Pony Prize.
Man, encyclopedic. Man.
Clearly, it was from people's comments. It was not a movie that many people had heard of. I hadn't even heard of it, so it's and I enjoy Stephen Frears, but clearly it was one of his minor works, I guess.
Deep cuts. Deep cuts. Well, that is fantastic, and I am excited about this. All the contests, the end of the year contests. I'm very excited about these things. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's do trailers. Andy, I'm going to go first.
Oh, you go first.
Do you want to know why? Because you didn't say anything fast enough. I felt like there was a pregnant pause, and so I jumped in. Here we go.
I'll give you that.
Where do you stand on David Cronenberg?
I like him sometimes. How's that?
Well, that was fairly non-committal. I'm doing Maps to the Stars. Maps to the Stars is a new David Cronenberg film written by Bruce Wagner, stars Julianne Moore, Robert Pattinson, Sarah Gadon, and John Cusack.
And Mia Wasikowska.
And Carrie Fisher. All of these people are in this movie. It's very, very exciting. And it looks, there are a number of trailers, and the trailer that the first trailer I saw was the Thriller trailer, like thriller, scary music, everything super scary. And then I sent you a link of another trailer that I found on YouTube that was not as scary at the beginning. It felt very much like the Labor Day Conundrum. Until it gets to the end of the trailer that I showed you, and they're like tying each other up and beating each other in the living room. So it looks like quite a thriller. I'm not entirely sure how to describe it. IMDb says it's a tour into the heart of a Hollywood family chasing celebrity and one another and the relentless ghosts of their past. So that describes every movie.
Well, it looked interesting, and the thing that piqued my curiosity the most was the fact that at the very end it said now in post-production.
Is that weird?
Like, you don't see that too often at the end of them.
We're really moving up. We're really moving up now in post-production. It is due to come out. It was to have already come out. It is post-release in France, apparently, 21st of May, 2014. I don't know how true that is, but apparently in Europe it's already. Maybe it's back in post-production, post-release production.
They've gone back to do some more work on it.
But I thought it looked very interesting. I was excited about it, and then I looked at Bruce Wagner's credits and. Most recently he's written a number of episodes of State of the Union. I think he's on the writing team there. Women in Film, I'm Losing You, White Dwarf, White Palms. But his big credit for me is my favorite of the catalog of Freddy Krueger films, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, with the Dream Warriors. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I definitely do.
That was a big one. Heather Langenkamp goes dreaming.
Makeup artist. Doesn't she do
now,
special
I
effects?
think she does now, yeah. Robert Englund.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah, all right. So that's it. What do you think? Good?
I'm always curious to see David Cronenberg stuff. I don't always pursue them. I don't even remember the last one I saw. I feel like it's been a while. But I do enjoy some of his way of thinking and putting stories together, and he definitely has an interesting way of telling a story. I still think one of my favorites is his reworking of The Fly.
Yeah, that was a standout piece. But he also has a history of violence. Cosmopolis recently with Pattinson again, which I thought was an interesting take on the theme, and so he's got a number of films in there that I find I keep coming back to, but then the rest of them are like I don't know, Naked Lunch.
Yeah, that's that one. I enjoy that one for its depiction of that world. I think he created a very interesting experience with that film.
All right, now we're gonna throw down.
Now we're gonna get into it.
I don't even know what that means. What's your trailer?
Mine is Kelly and Cal, a film that did pretty well for itself back at South by Southwest. It got a Game Changer Award, the winner of the South by Southwest Film Festival Game Changer Award, which I guess, it's something that means it's a game changer for people involved in this.
Somebody's game has been changed.
That's right. This is a kind of a Juliette Lewis film that people are saying, this is the Juliette Lewis that should have been after she was getting all the accolades as the young breakout star back in her Cape Fear days and everything. This is kind of that Juliette Lewis that we wanted to see her become. And she looks great in this film. She's playing a suburban mom who, she ends up kind of accidentally befriending this 17-year-old wheelchair-bound boy next door. And they kind of create this funky friendship, and she reveals that she used to kind of have this punk rocker childhood where she was in a band and all that stuff, and it's just it's a way for her to kind of break out of this suburban mold that she's been trapped in, and also kind of help him grow and all that sort of story. It sounds so cheesy when you say it like that, but it looks good from watching the trailer.
I think it looks great, and I'm so excited that it's getting some positive buzz because Jen McGowan and Amy Lo Starbin, director and writer, are really shy on the credits. Like they are relative unknowns, and it's just awesome to see such good work coming out of such a short list of credits.
Yeah, absolutely. They're fairly new to the business. They've done, I think, Jen McGowan's only done a few little shorts, really, and I mean she's been involved in some bigger projects, but not. Yeah, there's really not a lot in her lineup. So it is great seeing this film. I mean, it looks great. It's got great characters. It looks like it has kind of this really well-written script with well-rounded characters in it. I'm excited to see where this takes them.
Me too. Okay, it's a date. Now, we need to take a quick break because there's someone who needs to see you in room 237. Can you go check that out?
Meet Jack Torrance.
I'm outlining a new writing project.
He's a writer looking for inspiration.
Lots of ideas. No good ones.
Meet Danny. He's a kid looking for a dad.
There's hardly anybody to play with around here.
What's up, Doc?
Jack just can't finish his book.
I don't want to sound melodramatic, but there's no way to make it economically feasible.
Here's to 5 miserable months.
But now, sometimes what we need the most is just around the corner.
I'm your new foster father.
I'd do anything.
Shining.
All right, so clearly that was not the official trailer.
Yes, clearly not.
How long have you known about that? Who did that? That was
Robobos?
Well, that's who posted it.
I don't know.
It was?
I don't know. I don't know who originally did it, but
that was
this has been floating around the internet for well over a decade. Yeah.
That is really great, and I think really sums up my experience with the movie. Of course, we are talking about The Shining, adaptation from Stephen King's book of the same name. It was released May 23rd, 1980. Director Stanley Kubrick. Written by Stanley Kubrick and Diane Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
It stars pretty much Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, and Danny Lloyd, with the wonderful Scatman Crothers, Barry Nelson, Philip Stone, Joe Turkel.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much them.
I want him to be my bartender every time I walk in the bar.
Hello, Lloyd. My dad's name is Lloyd. Did you know that?
Oh, wow. So
you actually probably knew that. And so I used to, when I first saw this movie, I used to call him and ask him to make me drinks. Yeah. He's pretty good.
Is he good at it?
Yeah, not really. Lousy bartender. Great dad, lousy bartender. It's probably not a bad not a bad combination.
Yeah, probably worked out well.
What do you think of The Shining? It's been probably it's been a while since I've seen it. This is not one that I put on. This is not my lazy Sunday movie. It's been many years since I've seen it. It's
not mine either, but I feel like this may be the Kubrick film I've seen more than any of the other films of his. And I'm not sure why that is, but when I'm reaching to, hey, let me put on a Kubrick film, it seems to fall into this one, and which I find interesting. I do like this film quite a bit. I feel like there's something with Jack Nicholson that's just over the top from the beginning that always kind of never quite works for me. It never clicks. But other than that, I do really enjoy the film.
There's an interesting commentary about Nicholson's casting in this film, and I can't. I'm not sure who it was that I've already lost the note. This is a horrible reference. That they were frustrated that Kubrick or that Nicholson had been cast because he'd just done Cuckoo's Nest, and that just having him cast in this film gives away the madness angle. That he's already conditioned people to see him as. He's gonna lose it.
Well, there had been 5 years between the two films, so
but I mean that was his. I mean that was sort of a legacy. That was a comment. Not me. Don't kill the messenger, Andrew. Just saying it was out there. I'm gonna find it.
Yeah. Well, and he had done Going South right before this as well, which I think he directed, and I believe he had. He was, I think, a little crazy in that as well. So, I mean, he clearly already kind of had the crazy hat on in some of his roles.
Yeah.
Which I think had come about a little bit after his earlier 70s films, The King of Marvin Gardens, Last Detail, Chinatown. I don't recall him being quite as crazy in those films, but then he definitely starts getting crazy after that, and it really kind of spirals into kind of his mania in the 80s and 90s with Witches of Eastwick, Batman, Few Good Men. He really kind of takes that mantle and runs with it after that.
He does really channel imbalance.
He does. Yes, he does.
He really does. This, I'm a fan of this film. A spoiler. I am a fan, and it holds up. I think maybe it holds up, and I've read a lot of the commentary about how there are so many people who pull the film apart at such a detailed level to really sort of dress down the film. I don't look at it that way, and I've never looked at it that way. I tend to look at the film on much more of a macro scale, and look at sort of the relationship of these of the family, the dissolution of the family that is represented in this film, and the dissolution of the family that comes in a horror film without excess blood and gore, but really builds intensity in a deliberate and patient manner that I think is extraordinarily effective. So I'm very excited with my last viewing of the film. I watched it probably more carefully than I have in sort of recent viewings, and I found it really effective. I have less trouble with Jack Nicholson and his sort of general mania that you don't click with than I do with Shelley Duvall. I do have some trouble with Shelley Duvall. I have a hard time watching her in the film, and I'm not quite sure why that is. It just never feels like it's like that sixth finger trying to go into a five-fingered glove. It's just something's not right.
Interesting.
But I have zero trouble with young Danny Lloyd, who I find I am entranced by this kid.
Yeah, and I mean, he was great in this. They did this huge casting trying to find the perfect kid for it. He was a kid out of somewhere in Illinois, I believe, and just ended up kind of doing really well in the auditions. He worked well, kind of just capturing the whole Tony aspect with the voice and his finger and everything, and they just kind of really fell for him. And then he kind of retired. I think he did one more thing a couple years later, Will, the autobiography of G. Gordon Liddy, as young Gordon Liddy, and that was it. And he kind of just didn't continue acting, and he just did his own little life, and that was it. But and kudos to him. I mean, I think knowing what he wants out of life rather than acting. I guess right now according to IMDb, he is a teacher of hard sciences in Missouri.
Wow.
Yeah.
All your life you work to get to that point, to play Danny Torrance, and then you throw it all away. So let's do a little bit of a summary, and I'm only asking this because I have had a number of conversations with people about The Shining, and when we talk about what is this film about, I get a pretty wide range of responses from people who love the film. They say they love the film and have a very different impression of what the film is about. So what is the film about for you?
Well, it's interesting, and I think it comes from people who have read the book and people who haven't read the book. I think you may end up finding different impressions of what they're getting out of it. Kubrick never saw the film as the same thing that Stephen King saw the book. And that was one of the reasons that when the movie came out, Stephen King was not, I won't say he wasn't happy, but he was disappointed with the film. I think it didn't take some of the ideas out of the book that he had been working toward, and it kind of took things that he wasn't necessarily focusing on. Kubrick always saw this as a story of a family going insane together, and you get kind of this madness of all of them kind of breaking down, really. And Stephen King always kind of saw it as a haunted hotel story, but it did deal with alcoholism because he was dealing with his own alcoholism at the time that he wrote it, and then just kind of the family issues and the kind of the father-son relationship and all of that. And for me, I mean, I've read the book, and I enjoy the book, and I read it actually after having watched the film. So I think that puts it all into a different perspective. Like, which do you interact with first, the film or the movie, or the film or the book? I mean,
either one,
or the TV movie, which I'd rather not ever think about again. But the film, to me, it really is about. I don't know. Yes, I can see what Kubrick is saying about kind of a story of a family going insane together. But and critics look at this as, are these things really happening, or is it just crazy things in the house or in their minds that that we're seeing, or is it real? Is it in their heads? Exactly what is going on? And I don't know. I've always just kind of looked at it as a haunted hotel film. And that's how I've always interpreted it. I've never kind of looked at it as this is stuff that's all in their heads, as they all kind of have a breakdown over this winter in this isolated hotel. So I don't. Maybe that's being simplistic of me, but I've always just kind of seen it as a haunted hotel film.
Yeah, I guess I have too, and that's why I'm often surprised at some of the other responses of what the film is about, or people who just really don't kind of know what it's about. They just sort of like the parade and the horror. But there is this sense of not just the the supernatural kind of experience of the hotel, but of what is the role and the connection of Jack Torrance, and what is it that his presence represents in the hotel. Particularly when you look at how the film closes, and how the film closes in the originally intended final sequence, which was cut, I think, 2 weeks after the film was officially released. It was re-edited. Kubrick changed the ending, so. Which I think in itself was largely unprecedented, and I think did away with some of the some of the potential supernatural connection to it. I think it numbed some of the ending of the film.
Well, it certainly would have had a very Halloween sort of ending where
Right.
they go back to look for the body and he's not there. That whole ending I think had become a bit of a horror movie trope by that point, just to kind of give that last little twist at the end in your denouement to kind of leave audiences walking out of the theater disconcerted that the killer, we thought he was
around.
dead, but he's still out there ready for the sequel, The Shining 2.
I don't think it's. I just think it's an interesting take on what the film really sort of represents. To me, the film is again, as I said, this is a film about family, and I think it's such an interesting story about family because it picks up in the emotional journey of Jack Torrance, who is clearly, maybe this is much more the way Nicholson plays the part, but it's clearly the family is already on a road to dissolution, before he even takes the job. I mean, we start out with this luscious opening credits sequence. The opening credits of the film is this flying sequence up through this valley, and the little yellow Volkswagen Bug is sort of careening up this mountain road, but it is really such a small element of the frame, right? And I think this does a number of things. First of all, it introduces us to Kubrick's use of space on the frame, and from there on, one of the things that you notice about the film, or that I notice about the film, is just the way he puts humans in at a very small scale, right? Because all the use of physical space, all of the major set pieces, the major rooms are they take place in a way so that the people are dwarfed by their surroundings, and I really like that, because I think one of the connections we get to make is just how small sort of we are, our problems are, that sort of a thing. That this place, this mountain, this valley that you're driving in is in somehow it's going to own you by the end of your experience here. You are nothing to us, and I think that's kind of what the horror message ends up playing out for us, and particularly with Jack's role. But I really like that, and so that gets back to this kind of emotional connection that we have. That the family is kind of falling apart. It's falling apart in the midst of such grandeur that the hotel takes no. It suffers.
And he pairs that very interestingly with really interesting pieces of music. I mean, he had Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind compose a few little pieces of electronic score that are in there, but for the most part, it's like the sort of music that I can't imagine people actually going and sitting down in a concert hall to listen to, but apparently people do. But he's got some pieces by Georgi Ligeti, by Bela Bartok, by Christoph Penderecki, and what's the other one? Hector Berlioz, I think, are the ones that are in there. And it's all of the pieces are just some of the most disturbing kind of pieces of music to listen to. If you pull it out of the film and listen to it, it's just it really creeps you out. And when you have those gorgeous open spaces of the most amazingly smooth helicopter shot flying over the landscape, with just this tiny human element in there, dwarfed by this amazing environment, with this horrifying music, I think Kubrick found a really interesting way to create this world and create this style of telling a horror story that allows for time and doesn't rely on quick cutting or those just all the tropes of horror movies where you've got kind of the jump scares, the typical sort of jump scares, or you've got those musical stingers that just hit right as the boogeyman comes around the corner or something like that, or the hand reaches out of from behind something. You don't have that, and you've just got these vast spaces, and it really does, I feel, end up putting you into a psychological place with these characters as they are breaking down. And so to that extent, I do agree with Kubrick that, you are kind of going and watching this family going insane together, and you as the audience are really getting into their heads by having this pacing and having the music that he uses and having these wide shots that are just vast and allow these characters to kind of be overwhelmed by their environments, and the maze-like nature of so many of these things, whether it's the actual maze outside of the hotel,
or just the architecture itself.
Yeah, or the hotel itself. It is like this giant maze. When you're following Danny around on his three-wheeler as he cruises around the hallways, it's no different than when you're following him around in the maze. It really is kind of the same thing.
Go ahead, finish your point.
I was just going to say, and I just think it was very smart of him to play with the horror movie tropes and using the tools that he was presented with to change the horror element to make it a little more psychological. And I think that it was a very smart way to tell this particular story.
Yeah, I do too. And I think one of the things he adds to it, right, is this not just sort of putting us in this in that place in the frame, but also doing a really, I think a nice job of demonstrating the fragility of kind of the human relationship with nature, right? The fact that the family's experience or the family's safety, really was tied to those three little fuses in the radio transmitter, I think further cements this sort of distance and scale that I really liked. But on another point, speaking back to the maze, this film would not, I think, be what it is without the use of Steadicam.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This was what did we say? It was the fourth or fifth. I think we've talked about it a little bit when we talked about Marathon Man.
Yeah, because Marathon Man was I think, what was it? It ended up being the second
film, I think, to use.
Yeah. Although I think it ended up being the first release.
That's right.
Because I think he shot the Woody Guthrie movie, Bound for Glory. That was the first one shot, and then Marathon Man, and then Rocky. But I think Marathon Man ended up getting released first. Yeah. And that was all 76. Shining was a few years later, and I know he had to leave partway through the shooting of this one to go shoot Rocky 2. So I mean, he definitely was in. I think he says in the first half dozen or so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this, I think, more than Marathon Man, even we have this. Although there's some elegant use of tension and that comes with the smoothness of being able to move the camera in new ways in Marathon Man, for sure. But this film is it felt to me like, and I didn't time it out, but it felt to me like most of the film is on a steady cam in some way, shape, or form. The way we either follow characters, we parallel characters on a parallel track through these long hotel corridors, or follow characters through these corridors. In the case of Danny, which I think a lot of that was done in a wheelchair with the Steadicam, or meet characters when we have characters coming straight toward us and moving backward around them. I think that those sort of three angles are used so frequently in this film that you almost feel like you're flying for much of it, which to me is a wonderful experience.
Well, and it ties into, in a very nice way, of being kind of that omniscient viewer that we see right at the start of the film, over, looking as we're flying over the lakes and the mountains and the roads. It's very much the exact same movement that we have. So it's almost like, nothing has really changed as far as how we, the viewer, are kind of looking at the story, whether it's outside or inside. It really is just kind of this, this floating being is really kind of how we're watching everything unfold.
That's right. And it really, I like that you connected that to the opening credits, that you really do feel like you're flying into the hotel. At its simplest, as a ghost story, you feel like one of the more dangerous participants.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful. What else? What else do you want to talk about production? It was filmed in my neighborhood, I should say.
It was filmed in your neighborhood, was it?
Exterior, Timberline Lodge.
In your current neighborhood, right?
On Mount Hood.
And our old stomping grounds, Boulder. There's a shot from Boulder.
There's a shot from Boulder, and the Stanley Hotel in Boulder, or outside of Boulder, in Estes Park.
Estes Park, yeah,
is where Stephen King was inspired and wrote the book.
Right, and which they actually used for the TV movie version in 1997. It didn't,
about which we will not speak.
About which we will not speak. It's sometimes trying to do a more faithful adaptation, I find, is not the right way to go. Sorry, Stephen. I know you you actually were really behind that one because you weren't happy with this one, but this one is the better project.
I actually never saw it, the TV one. Never saw it.
It could have just been the casting. I had a real problem with the kid that they cast in that. He was just no Danny Lloyd.
Yeah.
So and then those highway shots at the beginning were filmed up at Glacier National Park. But the actual hotel set was all built as per Stanley Kubrick and his kind of way of filmmaking. Once he moved to England, he kind of never left. He never flew. He just was afraid of flying, and he really never left England. And so all of the actual snowy exteriors where they're running around, that was all built outside of a little village in England. All of the interiors were on some sound stages out there. The maze was built there. Everything was on stages out there.
What's they at one point he wanted to actually grow the maze, and was, I think, disabused of that wish.
Well, considering how long the film took to make, he probably could have.
Yeah, he probably could have, and that would have. So they were going to film the hedge stuff at the very end. He said, "We'll plan it now, then we'll go do everything else, and then come back. It'll be ready." This giant 100-year-old maze.
Right, exactly. That's funny. This was a film that took. It was supposed to be done in 17 weeks. It ended up taking, I think, about 46 weeks to film, as per Kubrick. And I really appreciate this in a director, because you so rarely have directors who look at making a film this way. He says, "Look, we spend months and months and months trying to get everything right, trying to figure out the casting, trying to figure out the look, working on the script, working on the finding the right locations, building the sets. We spend months, sometimes years, getting all this stuff done. But then we go into production, and it's like boom, boom, boom. Okay, done. Move on to the next thing. Okay, done. Move on to the next thing. And you don't spend any time on it. If we're going to spend months and years prepping it, then let's take the time and actually make sure we get everything exactly the way we want. And that is something that he's lucky he was working in a studio system that allowed him the budget overages to do that. I mean, not often are people able to just, do that with their budgets, where they can kind of go from a 17-week to a 46-week schedule. That doesn't usually bode well for the people involved. But he really worked his actors and just did them over and over and over again. I think the longest take, and it was at one point a record. I don't know if it is still a record or not. But the take where Scatman Crothers and Danny Lloyd are sitting down having ice cream, talking about The Shining in the kitchen, that scene, he filmed the Scatman Crothers close-up 148 times to get it right. And it finally ended because Scatman just kind of like broke down, and I don't know if it was broke down in tears, but he just kind of like finally broke down, like, I just don't even know what you want anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And Kubrick was kind of feeling bad, and so kind of stopped at that point. But yeah, he just kept going, and that's kind of what Kubrick was looking for. And he would film his rehearsals. So the first, everybody would say, you can't expect like the first 5 or 10 takes to really work, because everyone's still trying to figure their stuff out, figuring out the moves, figuring out what they want. But then to go from those 5 or 10 takes to 148, it's like, wow.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the stories of, Shelley Duvall passing out from exhaustion, and, he's sort of got this legendary endurance, let's say, persistence, for just getting it just right. But 146 takes, really a bridge too far.
That's a lot of takes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it is Scatman Crothers. You want to get it right.
That's right.
Let's see. Who else are you excited about in this film? You talked about the music, which I thought was wonderful, and generally the cinematography was particularly elegant.
The cinematography, they really spent a lot of time, and this again fits in with Kubrick and his length of time. Yeah. They spent a lot of time focusing on all of the specific aspects of the lighting for every single scene. We should say John Alcott did the cinematography. Yeah, John Alcott did the cinematography, right? And they did lots and lots of tests. They would light it, and then they would put things on dimmers so they could change them easily, and then they would just kind of adjust the dimmer, and they would film it, and then they would process the film, and they would look at it and go, okay, hey, that's the spot that we like right there, so they could know exactly how they're going to light it. So they did a lot of lighting tests on this to make everything right, whether it's the lighting at the bar when Jack comes to have his drinks with your father, or if it's the exteriors. And the exteriors, which it wasn't really snowing when they filmed this, so they actually had to make all of that snow with salt. I can't remember how many tons of salt, but it was this insane 900 tons of salt that they used. They put on the ground outside to make this, and the salt just erodes your boots, and it just corrodes the equipment. So like they had to keep buying new boots for people because it kept ruining things. And then they were blowing styrofoam everywhere. This was long before the days where productions really had to pay attention to how people, how their bodies actually dealt with the stuff that they were breathing in, because they would do the smokers, which were, it would just kind of burn this oil that would just smoke everything up to give it that nice smoky look. Well, now we know that that's not something that you should make people breathe. But back then they didn't really pay attention to that quite so much. So everyone was breathing this awful smoke and having styrofoam blowing around, walking around in 900 tons of salt. And it was just this great big mess. And the poor village, they said that this poor village that they were filming outside of in England, they said it was like an industrial town back east or something, kind of a small industrial town that survives on its mining. They hate the mine, but they love the fact that it brings in money to the town. And so nobody would complain, but they all hated the fact that, the styrofoam was constantly blowing through the streets and everything from the set.
Mountain.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like over the hill, and all the styrofoam would kind of keep blowing over, and everything was getting ruined, but there was so much money coming into the town that they weren't going to complain about it. So just kind of a sad thing. But back to the lighting. They had a lot of strong lights outside to blast this, and this is a great I don't know if we've ever talked about color timing before, but you have all these bright lights, and they're very orange the way that they would film with these outside lights. And what they would do then is they would process the film. And again, Stanley Kubrick is very meticulous. He had very specific notes for the color timers and even the processors as far as which lights and what levels to use as they developed the film. And then when they timed it, they take this film where it comes out looking kind of orange, and they adjust the color temperatures so that it all ends up creating this nice blue look that we now all know as we watch the film, which makes it look like it's a really cold winter. But in fact, it was actually really, really hot. So hot and salty.
Hot and salty, and they're all in their sweaters and running about looking cold.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fascinating and horrific shoot.
Yeah, went on forever.
Editing was done by the great Ray Lovejoy. Generally fine. He's done a lot of stuff. He actually did Batman. Already mentioned Batman once. We've talked about him because when he did the Aliens show. Mm-hmm.
He did, I think, a really great job in here with the. He did. I was talking about the horror movie tropes earlier, and talking about like the jump cuts and everything, and kind of those quick cuts that you would get in a horror film. There are some of those in here, but they're not ever things that are like real in the environment, things that are happening. It's all like these psychological cuts within Danny's head or Jack's head or whoever's head it is that we're in.
Flash forward things.
Right, where you're getting, as Danny sees these two creepy girls in the hallway, he gets this flash cut of the two of them dead lying in the hallway with just blood everywhere. But it's very quick. And then you pair that with that creepy music, and it really unsettles you. And you're not seeing the real girls, but you know, again, going back to Stanley Kubrick and his idea of this story of a family going insane together, you're inside these characters' heads. And I think it works really well the way that he edited and played around with that.
Well, I think so too. And to your point, I think the one kind of traditional boo moment we get is the jump cut is it's the death of Scatman Crothers, right? When he's coming in, Jack Torrance actually jumps out from behind a post.
He does, but the thing that I like about that, and the thing that I think I appreciated a lot more this time, is that it's not done in the traditional jump cut way.
It's exactly what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
That whole sequence starts in a way that you think is going to build up to a jump cut, right? You think it's going to, because he comes up the hill and you hear Scatman Crothers in the lobby and he's saying, "Anybody here?" And Jack comes up, he's dragging the axe and he's limping along, and you think, okay, I'm about to get spooked, right? But they don't rely on the editing to give you the jump.
Right.
They rely on Jack himself, who actually jumps and then cuts.
Wah wah.
with the axe.
Were you waiting to get that one out? Is that what that was?
That was the whole thing. And then you interrupted as if I was like going down the wrong road. I totally was going down the right because I had a joke. It was a jump and a cut joke. And you went on and got all film school on me. I've been waiting for that one for like 2 days since I finished the
Wow.
movie. Andy's going to love my jump and then cut joke with the axe.
Does it help if I tell you that I still love it?
It does a little bit. It does a little bit help, yeah. What a relief.
You finally got it out.
I'm hanging up
Give
my
yourself
spurs.
a pat on the back.
Yeah. That's the last one. All right. I don't even know where to go from here because I've been waiting to work that one in for so long.
Just like, yes.
Yeah, back to editing. It was pretty good.
That's pretty good.
You have to give credit to the production and art design of this film because, really, because they built a giant hotel. And it goes back to this sense of scale. Every single room in here, I think this is so, I know I'm harping on about this, but all the way down to the kitchen and the pantry and the way they run the camera as they're giving the tour of the pantry down these, you think it's just this little room that's kind of this row of shelves that is right by the door, because the weight of the tour scene is there. And then he turns and he walks and we're on the opposite end of this giant pantry, and we parallel the tour as they show this pantry, and it's huge. It's a high ceiling, it's multiple shelves, and it ends up once again building this sense of that the humans pale in comparison to where they are, and where they are was totally built. And I think that is, it was just a triumph that it looked as good as it did. It looked as complete. And I know that there have been, and you maybe, I think maybe you participated in writing one of these critical essays on how poorly the staging is and set design is done in this film because there are so many errors and windows in the wrong place. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know what you're talking about. I don't believe that
You didn't write that?
That detailed in worrying about that, but that's I mean, Roy Walker and Leslie Tompkins, the production designer and art director, I think did an amazing job with creating this world and creating this space. I mean, I am fooled every time I watch this, and I feel like I'm in an actual hotel. Yes, I mean, I think you're kind of alluding to kind of the conspiracy theorists who led to the making of Room 237.
Exactly.
The documentary. I tried, Ange and I tried watching that just the other night to get a sense of these stories, and I just couldn't get into it. I thought the whole thing was just bunk. It's just like, this is just so inane. But I don't know. But people have all these theories, and I appreciate it. It's I'm always excited about a film that makes people end up coming up with really interesting theories about things, whether it's Kubrick using this as a way to tell people, hey, the moon landing is fake. I actually filmed it. Let me put this little shot of Danny, with his rocket shirt standing up like he's taking off in the film. I think it's interesting that people end up reading all of these sorts of things into it, or like about the whole idea of apologizing about the Native Americans, or the I can't even remember what else the other things are. But I mean, there's just like all these different things that people see in the film, and it is very interesting that people go to these lengths. There's Holocaust theories, and I don't know. It's fascinating, but I don't know. I couldn't get into the documentary. Did you see Room 237?
I turned it on. Well, there was a bunch of there was a bunch of hubbub about it late last year, and I turned it on and I tried. And it was all because somebody said, you got to watch this because when he walks into the thing, there's a Steadicam shot and it follows Jack and he takes him into the office, and he walks into the hotel manager's office, and there's a window right behind his desk, and that window couldn't structurally exist. And I don't know why that comment would hook me, because in hindsight, that's a really dumb comment. Like, that's a really, really dumb thing to notice. But I put it on, and I think I got through maybe about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and I turned it off. It was not worth it. It was no longer worth the oxygen I was breathing while I was watching it.
Yeah, that's about how I felt. I just, like the whole thing with the Calumet baking powder, and as representing the peace pipes. And I was just like, okay, this is not. I'm not going to be the audience for this film.
This is you're wrong target.
Yep,
wrong target. So I make probably too much fun of it, given that I've never actually seen the whole thing. So maybe I would take some of that back. I'm gonna leave it out there for now.
Maybe.
Yeah. Anyhow, what's next on your list?
We didn't mention him, but Garrett Brown is the guy who is the inventor of the Steadicam, and he is the guy that we should give all the credit to for the amazing Steadicam work, even though he didn't do all of it, because, as I said in the beginning, the film went over schedule so long that he actually had to leave to go do Rocky II, and then come back when Rocky II finished so that he could continue working on it. That's how long the filming went, and so he had some people that he trained kind of helping out sometimes on some of the shots, but I think he gets most of the credit for this, Garrett Brown, with his amazing Steadicam work.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody else on the crew that you feel like, Peter Spencer was the property man, Del Smith, head painter. I mean,
fantastic painting.
Thomas Harry is the master plasterer.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing work that went into the art on this film. It is. I think it's really underappreciated.
Well, it was, I think, and I don't know if it still holds the record, but it was the biggest set that had ever been built on these soundstages. Yeah. And then I believe Raiders of the Lost Ark and maybe Reds. I can't remember which came first, but they were kind of on hold, waiting for Kubrick to finish this thing. They came on. The hotel lobby ended up being, I think, the Well of Souls in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
That's right.
The hotel lobby was the Well of Souls with the giant pillars.
And all kind of the big, all the snakes. Why did they have to be snakes? Mm-hmm.
Now that's a mashup I'd like to see. The Shining Raiders. Wow, that's fascinating. I'm going to have to watch those scenes again. Are you you have some more stuff? You want to talk numbers?
Just no, I think that is it, actually. Now that I look through this, I was going to mention that the opening Steadicam, or the opening aerial shots, was filmed by McGillivray Freeman Films, and people who are fans of a lot of the IMAX nature documentaries would see McGillivray Freeman popping up on a lot of those. They were doing a lot of those gorgeous IMAX filming to make the landscapes look so beautiful. But even Kubrick had specific notes for them, and he actually had them, what was it, like recalibrate? I don't know if recalibrate is the right word, but something with the actual blades of the helicopter. He actually had them all readjusted or retuned or whatever it is in order to help the helicopter actually fly smoother. So it just going, pointing it out how Kubrick gets into every detail, whether it's the helicopter blades or it's the, every time he would go to have his, to screen the dailies on the projector, he would have the projector rebuilt every week or something like that in order to make sure that there was no jitter when it was projecting.
Wow.
And so he's just a meticulous person who wanted everything to be absolutely perfect. And I find it interesting. And I don't know, I think it works really well in context of this horror film that he is telling here.
I think you're right. I'm going to change the subject.
Okay.
So you win that one. Can we go back just a little bit and talk just a little bit more about Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance?
Right. Absolutely.
I'm going to ask a dumb question.
Okay.
This may be cut if you give me an answer that makes it sound like it should be super obvious. Why is he in the picture at the end?
Well, and see, this is something that I would say is an interesting reason that I think makes this movie last and makes it something that people are still going back to time and time again. And it's a movie that we still talk about. We're talking about it right now. Kubrick doesn't give you any answers.
I know, and it makes me really mad.
And that's, I think, the whole point. Now, there is this whole theory, because there is a point in the film where you are introduced to the story of Grady as he, the whole idea of this former caretaker of the hotel who had killed his family, and he killed his wife and his 2 girls, and those are the girls that we see. Now, when the hotel whatever his role is, the manager of the hotel,
caretaker, or the
Ullman, when he's talking to Jack about this, he tells him that the guy's name is Charles Grady, and how he had succumbed to cabin fever and killed his family. Now, when Jack meets Grady in the bathroom, Grady introduces himself as Delbert Grady. And so it ends up being this little difference in the story here, where because of that's brought up this whole theory about how there's these mirrors of characters, and how the Charles Grady and the Delbert Grady may be different people, and Charles Grady may be a person who actually went crazy and killed his family, but he's not necessarily Delbert Grady, who is kind of a spirit in this hotel that has always been there, just like the Jack Torrance spirit or whatever it is that's in that picture. It's just kind of representing that this character has kind of been coming back to this hotel time and time again, and it's kind of these pairings of them.
Yeah, and I come back to that there could be some. At one point, I was thinking this is just this weird sort of spectral time loop. That Jack will always come back. Jack as someone will always end up at the Overlook Hotel, and he is an institution, a horrific institution in the history repeating itself category of this hotel, and I always sort of liked that.
Yeah. God forbid he goes and gets his memory erased.
Right.
He'll just end up right back here again.
Exactly. So that's always interesting. This character is, it's obviously on the top 100 of AFI's heroes and villains list. He's the number 25 villain, Jack Torrance. He's a pretty scary dude, and we haven't once said the most famous line.
Here's Johnny.
There he is.
Is there any point in the film that you are like, okay, Jack, you did actually go over the line in that moment?
You mean as an overactor?
Yes.
Is that the one for you?
No.
Oh, I think I think they're. Wow,
there's really one for me that always stands out as the moment that's like, he just feels so acting right here.
Is it near the near or around the lobby typewriter?
No.
No, see, that would be where it is for me. It's sort of the first time he reacts to her interrupting him, which bugs me. Which is ironic because I think when he's at his most effective as an actor, it comes later when she wakes him up from his nightmare and they're on the floor and he says, I just dreamt I killed you. That's one of the most powerful scenes for me in this sequence, and it's one of the most powerful scenes I think for her too. It seems like one of the most human. For me. What's yours?
It's the moment when he's sitting down with Lloyd, the bartender, when he kind of first meets him, and it's his when he's talking about how he's so irritated with Wendy, and he's just like, okay, I might have grabbed him a little hard, and I can't remember exactly what his lines are, but it's how he acts in that moment with Lloyd about how he hurt Danny. It always strikes me as he just seems over the top and not quite. I don't know if he's kind of taken it a little too far in that particular moment. Too far in a way that feels like he actually stepped out of character.
You know what's very strange about that? I think you're right. I have a similar reaction, but I didn't write. I didn't chalk that up to Jack. I chalk it up to some of the Kubrickian sort of editing choices, right? Mm-hmm. This come into play. There are no leading lines, right? In any of these two-shot sequences, right? We don't get any reaction shots while Jack is talking. There is at no point do we hear Jack talking while we're looking at Lloyd, and vice versa. Whenever Lloyd is talking, so that means it's more of a ping pong match, and that feels in this film unnatural because we're not, at least for me, I'm not used to it anymore. The styles have changed, and we get a lot of sort of leading audio tracks that will lead us into the next cut, right?
Yeah, right.
That does not happen in this film, and it makes some of these sequences feel particularly sterile to me,
right?
And I think in this case maybe Jack would have felt better if we didn't have to look at him while he was doing all of his lines.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Like if there were a little bit more organic cutting in this sequence. I don't know. I wonder if that would have had any effect. Because I agree with you. You're right. It feels very staged.
Well, and what's interesting about that is you hear about how many takes Kubrick did on these shots over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You know that he's got a wide variety of options with Nicholson as far as, okay, here's a very understated performance, here's a very overstated performance. He's got, just a lot of options, and that is the one that he picks.
Yeah.
Between him and his editor, that's what they go with. And so I find it very interesting. And I guess I can't fault Nicholson for that, really. It's really the fact that is the take that Kubrick chose to go with.
That's right. And you know what you do get? I mean, when you think about the benefits of the sequences that he chose, each of those cuts that he took, right? You get some of the most expressive physicality of Nicholson. You get to see his face looking more sort of rubbery than ever. Like he does some things with his skin in those sequences that's really animated, right? I mean, it's just it's unique. It's interesting to watch, even though you sort of have to distance yourself from the performance. I can totally see why they would have picked those, because I think that overstated sort of physicality in those sequences, as he's just the way he's moving his face, the largesse he has with each of his motions, it really adds to it.
And then you balance that with one of my favorite scenes in the film is when Danny wants to go back into the room to get his fire truck, and he walks in, and he promises Mom he's going to be quiet and tiptoe and not wake Dad up because Dad is sleeping. But he goes in, and you get that fantastic shot of him as he looks in the room, and then that whip pan over to Jack sitting up on the bed. But then you have this amazing conversation between the two of them that I find just really powerful and very understated Nicholson at that point. It's a very beautiful scene that actually gets kind of creepy as Danny starts asking him hard questions like, "You would never hurt me and Mom, would you?" And,
it's crushing.
It's like that scene to me is the film is the moment that really kind of makes this relationship with his family work for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right. Now we can do something else. You want to do numbers?
Yes. Let's do numbers. So this movie, as you said, came out May 23rd, 1980. It was a slow build. This was actually a film that had a hard time finding its audience. It didn't click with people right away, and it took a while, although it did slowly find its audience, and it wasn't very well reviewed. It wasn't really well reviewed until much later, like decades later. All of a sudden, people kind of realized, hey, this is actually a good movie. But so because of that, in 1980, it was really a slow burn over the course of the summer, and it ended up. It cost $19 million to make, and adjusted, that would have been about not quite $54 million to make, and then. Domestically, I could only find domestic numbers, but it made about $44 million, which today's dollars would be about $125.5 million. So it did well. It made its money back, and adjusted profit per finished minute is just under $500,000 per finished minute. So in the long and the short of it, I mean, it ended up making a profit. So
all right.
which Kubrick needed, because coming off of Barry Lyndon, that was a big failure at the box office, and so he really needed to find something that could kind of be a hit, and so that's why he went to horror, and that's why he ended up picking this book, The Shining, to go with and make something that is kind of an indelible horror classic, even if the author doesn't actually like it.
Yeah, that's too bad. But it definitely gave him a little shove into he spent the next part of his life pulling out Full Metal Jacket. That's an awesome film coming out of The Shining.
Yeah, although it took a while to get to it, but
yeah, it took a while, but
not exactly a fast filmmaker.
No. All right, hey, awesome. I think it's time that we rank it.
Let's do it.
Head on over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, and you can pair up with us over there and see if your favorite films line up with our favorite films. That's what you should do, and we'll be looking for you. So go ahead.
All right, The Shining or The Bourne Supremacy?
That's I probably The Shining.
Yeah, I think I would do The Shining. The Shining or For a Few Dollars More? Your favorite of the trilogy?
I think For a Few Dollars More.
I would probably go with The Shining, and maybe it's just because I've seen it so many more times. It's just one of those films that has a very lasting impression on me.
Like how much? A scale of 1 to 10. Where are you?
Well, the imagery for it, I think, is what makes the film for me. I don't know. I would say The Shining. How set are you on For a Few Dollars More?
Yeah, pretty set. But it feels like you are perhaps more set than I am. Like you might watch this movie in a shower, for example. Like really watching The Shining in some really inappropriate places, under a bed, in the trunk of a moving car. I think you would choose to watch The Shining versus anything else.
That's usually where I watch it.
I'll give it to you for the shower and the moving car.
All right. Plus the awesome. I mean, there's a wide variety of posters for the movie, but Saul Bass, I think, has the best one, which is that creepy face in the lettering.
Yeah, that was the best, and why they ended up using the still from the face in the door. The Here's Johnny sequence. I think that's ridiculous poster. But
yeah, I agree. Right. The Shining or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? It's interesting that we went to those two films.
I know. I would choose The Shining over this one.
I think I would too. The Shining or Brazil?
I think we would both probably go Brazil.
All right.
That's a good way to do it. We're going to guess for each other. I'm going to guess for you on this next one.
Okay, The Shining or Aliens? I think you're going to go Aliens. Well, there you go. We both said Aliens. That was easy.
All right, that was too easy.
The Shining or The Fisher King?
I think you're going to say The Fisher King.
I think you are too.
All right.
There you go.
I accept.
The Shining or The French Connection?
Oh.
I think we're both going to say The French Connection.
I think we are.
Yeah. And
wow.
The Shining or Fight Club?
Fight Club.
Yeah.
Oh, I may have just chosen for myself.
That's okay. I think I would do Fight Club too.
Okay.
Number 19. There you go. Number 19 out of 149. We're close to that 150 movies on our list.
So close. Do you know what our 150th movie is going to be?
I do. Do you want to know?
I want to know because I don't have it open. What's it going to be?
Well, we're going to be continuing our Stephen King series with Creepshow.
Oh, yeah. I'm really excited about this.
I am too. I saw this a lot when I was young, and I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm looking forward to jumping back into it.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to be our 150th.
Well, if this one was our 149th.
Oh, I thought you said 144th.
No, 149th.
Oh, I thought I was asking you to go into December or something.
No. This was 19 out of 149.
Wow, that's great. Creepshow is our 150th?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a gala event. I want a parade.
That's right. It's like a parade of short films.
We're going to need a longer show. All right, that's all I got. I think I'm going to head up to old 237. Hit the sack.
Yeah. There you go.
Sack of skin.
don't even have anything. Go get a drink out of your nipple fridge.
I may, this is a little bit of a longer one, but I may have to read the whole thing because it just keeps giving all the way through. 1 star. Title, The Shining, by Patrice. Having read The Shining and been in turns moved to laughter, tears, and, of course, terror, I was prepared for a powerful movie. It was powerfully dreadful. Stanley Kubrick missed the whole point of the book, the humanity and the struggle against human and supernatural evil. The tragedy of the book was the gradual seduction of Jack Torrance back into alcoholism and into the grip of the hotel. Jack Nicholson, a fine actor, proved himself to be a USDA Grade 1 ham, with his slobbering, capering, immediate descent into evil. Wendy in the movie was a dish rag of a wife. Stephen King has never written such a spineless woman in any of his books, let alone this one. And what can I say about the idea of Danny's friend Tony being his finger? Nothing without getting sick to my stomach. And Scatman as Dick Halloran? I don't know what Kubrick was thinking, but for me, he bore an uncomfortable resemblance to a Step and Fetch It. He was the most strong, dignified character in the book. As he was portrayed, I would never believe Danny would take any advice from him. The chase scene in the end, in the maze, would have been a clever touch in another movie. The true death scene of Jack Torrance in the hotel in the book was so moving and horrifying. I liked nothing about this movie.
Wow.
Right? Patrice.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And see.
Well, this is a 2-star review by Marcel Lee, who says, a mother and son who find themselves trapped at an empty hotel with an axe-wielding killer are the ones I'm supposed to be rooting for. But all the while, I'm hoping he chops them to bits. Then I'll no longer have to look at their asinine facial expressions. They're terrified, yes. If an axe to the face isn't scary enough, the hotel is also haunted by ghosts. But director Stanley Kubrick doesn't seem to realize that it's possible to be terrified with a straight face. Exaggerated grimaces, especially in the case of the mother, the pathetic victim type a villain in this type of movie thrives on, takes away from any potential realism The Shining has to offer. Marcel Lee.
Reminds me of Labor Day.
Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.